Okay, rolling. Well, thank you everybody for setting aside some time tonight. My name is Melody Jobse, and I and my colleague Jazz Chima from the BC Centre for Palliative Care are thrilled to be presenting with you tonight. And it would be great to be able to see all your faces in person. But in the absence of that, we're thrilled that we have technology to present online to you. And all the resources that we speak about tonight through Beverly will be available on our website, as well as through handouts and information that you can request from her. So the introduction tonight is called My Wishes, My Care, and this is an introduction to advanced care planning. So tonight we would like to first of all respectfully acknowledge the history, the customs, and the culture of the Coast Salish people, including the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. We recognize that we're presenting to you from the territory, the traditional territory, and home. And we'd also like to acknowledge, the many nations where you may be located or watching from. Tonight, we're going to be talking about advanced care planning, and we'd like to introduce to you the what, the why, the who, and the when of advanced care planning, and how to start advanced care planning process, and of course, where to find the resources. I would like to share with you a quick video, and in my very non-technology way, I'm going to switch right now to show an introduction video.
Advanced care planning is thinking and talking about your future healthcare with the people you trust. An advanced care plan can help you get the care that's right for you, even if you're unable to speak for yourself. And it is the best way to ensure you receive the treatment you want and not what you don't. And it helps your family and friends to make the right decisions for you if you can't.
Ready to start? Getting started is easy with 3 simple steps. Think, talk, and plan. Step 1, think. 2 things you could think about. What matters most to you? Think about your values and beliefs, the things that matter most to you in your daily life, in spiritual matters or about your health. These values will form the basis of your healthcare wishes. Who could make healthcare decisions for you if you cannot? If you want to choose someone specific, you can use a representation agreement form to legally appoint them as your representative. If you became too sick to make decisions for your care and you don't have a representation agreement, your healthcare provider will appoint a temporary substitute decision maker to make these decisions for you. Your healthcare provider will use a list predetermined by BC law to identify a qualified person from those close to you to be your temporary substitute decision maker. For instance, the first person they would ask would be your spouse, followed by a child, parent, then sibling.
Step 2, talk. Talk to the people you trust and your healthcare providers about your values, beliefs, and wishes so that everyone will be on the same page if you have a health emergency. Sometimes starting these conversations isn't easy. It is normal that you won't cover everything in one conversation. So be prepared to have multiple, smaller conversations. You can set the stage for these conversations by picking a time that you all have the time to talk, choosing a place where you're all comfortable and relaxed, using the experience of a friend, something in the news, or a storyline on a TV show to begin. It's often easier to get started by talking about the present and then about the future. You could start by saying, right now I'm healthy, but I want to think ahead if something unexpected should happen to me. I think it's really important that everyone knows what I want for my health care. I heard what happened to Joe down the street, and I would never want that for myself.
Step 3, plan. This can be done on paper, through your phone, and even on your computer. An advanced care plan is made up of a record of what matters most to you, your values, beliefs, and wishes for future healthcare, and the names and contact information of a representative and the people who qualify to be on your temporary substitute decision maker list. It might also contain any legal documents that you may have, like representation agreements or advance directives. Once it's complete, store your plan in a safe place where it can be easily located, like the fridge, for example, where first responders know to look for it. Share copies of your advanced care plan with your representative, if you have one, healthcare providers, and your close family and friends. If you have to go to the hospital, make sure to bring it with you. It is important that you review your plan regularly, say yearly, and especially when there is a change in your life or in your health. Don't forget to share the updated plan with your family, friends, and your healthcare providers too.
Advanced care planning is one way to be prepared for the unexpected. It lets your family, friends, and healthcare providers know how you wish to be cared for if you ever become seriously ill or badly hurt. It is as easy as think, talk, plan. Ready to find out more? Check out advanced care planning information and resources on the BC Centre for Palliative Care website at bc-cpc.ca/ACP.
So I just want to know, did that sound and the video come through clearly for everybody?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, let me just flip my screen for 1 minute again. And
One thing, Melody, there was no video to accompany that audio. I was wondering if that was intended.
no, there is a full video.
Okay, we had video of you with the audio overlay.
Yeah, we're not seeing the PowerPoint either. You've been sharing a PowerPoint, right?
I
Yeah.
did. Would you
Yeah.
like me to replay that?
Well,
Video?
the audio came through fine. It's just if you have other video, we should make sure that
Shoot.
you show.
Yeah.
Shows up.
Okay.
The PowerPoint we could see before when you were practicing. Now we're not seeing it.
Okay, here comes.
Okay, thank you.
Are you seeing it yet?
No, I don't see any. I just see the presenters. Oh, it's coming. Now we see it. Yay. Okay, you gotta press slideshow.
Yeah.
Yes, right now.
It really isn't our first rodeo. My apologies.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so you may have heard that video. We will link it in for you afterwards. It's a really simple one. The things that we talked about, I'm going to introduce Jazz, and she's going to start the process we're going to walk through today with you.
So I'm just going to put it out to you, the audience. What is advanced care planning? Have you heard of it? Do you know something about it? Nothing about it? What brings you here? What interested you in this subject? Maybe we could use the chat box. I'm not sure the setup in the room, whether you can come to the microphone and share. What do you know about advanced care planning?
Are you muted?
I'm not muted now.
Okay, I just don't want it to be loud. Are there any topics or questions that anyone had for the presenters that you'd like them to speak to specifically? They just want to make sure that they're here to answer your questions. They have a lot that they could talk about, but they were wondering if there was anything specific that you wanted them to talk about as part of their presentation. Gio.
Maybe after the presentation.
Okay. Okay.
It seems like people are willing to wait till after the presentation, and they'll have some questions then.
Perfect. That sounds good to me. So Melody, can we go on to the next slide? So life is full of unexpected situations. Things happen when you least expect it, accidents, illnesses. There's short-term and long-term setbacks that can happen. Life happens, be ready. Planning in advance for future healthcare needs is the theme of this year's Advanced Care Planning Day. And advanced care planning is an important part of life planning. We plan for all sorts of things in our life, and planning for our healthcare needs is just one part of that. And it's just as important as other things that we may be planning. So advanced care planning can help you prepare for your future health care and your personal care. Okay, so advanced care planning helps you plan ahead for future healthcare decisions, and it's a process of thinking about what are your values, your beliefs, your wishes about future healthcare, personal care, and it's about sharing that with your family, your loved one, or the people that you trust. It can include choosing who would make care decisions for you if you could not. It includes serious illness and injury can happen to any one of us at any time. So being prepared is really important. Advanced care planning can help you get the care that is right for you, even if you're too ill, you're injured, and you can't speak for yourself. Next, okay. So in Canada, when you're ill and need health care, you can choose whether you say yes or no to tests, to examinations and treatments, and your healthcare provider recommends. So whether you agree with the treatment plan or not, you have a choice around that. So your healthcare provider can provide care you don't want and don't agree to accept in emergency situations. So in emergency situations, it's all about trying to save your life, right? And then making a healthcare decision, you have the right to agree to a medical treatment, refuse the treatment, stop a treatment that has already started, say yes or no to participating in research. And to help you make decisions, you have the right to receive information to help you understand the decision you're trying to make and to weigh the risks and the benefits. Ask questions so that you can find the answers. You have the right to receive care free of criticism, free of judgment, respecting your values, respecting your choices. The right to have your communication needs met. For example, you can ask for a language interpreter if you don't speak English, or you need sign language interpretation. You can also communicate your decision using body language and nonverbal pictures. You have the right to receive support from the people you trust to help you make decisions. For example, you can ask a person that you trust. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, someone in the community. You could ask them to help you understand the information that's been given to you and to communicate that with the healthcare providers. So why is advanced care planning important? Why, you that are here today, why do you feel advanced care planning is important for you? And you can put that into the chat box. Share that on in the can we unmute and have them share?
Yep, just 1 second.
Okay.
We're gathering some questions.
Are you okay? Okay.
Yeah, we're handing out sheets so that people can write down questions. And
perfect. Okay. Perfect.
We'll put them in the chat when they come through.
Okay.
Okay.
So the question is, why is advanced care planning important for you?
And maybe we don't know that answer yet. Maybe that's what we're gonna find out. That could be possible too.
That could be true. That's true. Okay, so we have someone. So that's a really good one. So one of the comments is that so decisions don't have to be made at the last minute. So that's a really good point. Most of the time when there's been an accident or an illness of some kind, we're under a lot of stress, and making the best decision at that time usually is really hard. So if we've made those decisions at a time like this, where we're just having a conversation, where you're just sharing ideas, that's the best time to make those decisions, and rather than under duress. So very good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And so what are some of the benefits of talking about your healthcare needs ahead of time? Well, it benefits you, it benefits your family or the people that you trust, your friends, and it helps the healthcare providers. It reassures you that your wishes are known. It's a gift that you give to your family, your friends, your community, people that you trust. It reassures them that the thing that they know that what you want is what they're honoring. So it reduces the stress for them, also the anxiety and any conflicts, especially, when you have siblings that could be, at odds as to what the right decision should be. It also helps the healthcare providers consider the treatments and the care options that are consistent with your wishes. Do we have a few more comments here?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So this is all new to me, advanced care planning. I don't know anything about this. I want to know and learn about this. So learn you will today. So 4 months off of 80. Wow. Well, happy early birthday. So when it comes time, if I end up in an accident or worse, yeah, this will really definitely help your kids know their parent better, and also to help them make the decisions, like I said in this slide. Very good. So who needs to do advanced care planning? So advanced care planning is for everyone, and it's not necessary. A lot of people think that it's only for people that are older or at a certain age that you're going to need to do this. Accidents can happen to anyone. Anybody, and now we hear a lot about young people having strokes, aneurysms. So this is something that people of all age groups need to do. Okay, next. There we go. Advanced care planning is for everyone. So advanced care planning is for all adults, not just people who are older or seriously ill. And when should you do this? Sooner than later, right? Because again, accidents are accidents. They can happen anytime. Illnesses can come anytime, right? So the sooner you start advanced care planning, the better it is. Our health can change in an instant. Advanced care planning can help you get the care that's right for you during the time of illness or injury when we can't make a decision for ourselves. So if you're living with a serious illness or a chronic condition of any kind, it's important that you get started as soon as possible. Last year, I went on a fun family vacation and had a whitewater rafting accident. Little did I know that was going to happen. Yeah, and so this family vacation turned into quite the trauma. But having those plans in places can reassure you that you will get the care that you need. Okay, well, over to you, Melody. How do we do this? Oh, actually, we have some comments. I just noticed again.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I want to know how and where I will and may die when it occurs. Will my choices be followed?
Okay.
Okay, I think Melody will answer that for you in her presentation. And then the next one is I'll be 64 in June. So I'll have to get my pension planning and financial affairs, etc., 1 year before I turn 65. Therefore, health planning is another part of getting my affairs in order, eliminate stress. That is very true. Very good example there. Yes.
You know, that's just a great comment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Comments. How to do advanced care planning, and we've said from the beginning that it's really important. So let's just get right to the bones of it. We really believe that if you can remember these 3 words, you can begin the process of planning for your future health. That's what advanced care planning is. It's planning in advance for your care. So it's really 3 simple things: think, talk, plan. So we're going to go over today to think, which is think about what matters to you. Think about who could make health and personal care decisions for you if you could not speak, you could not or did not have capacity. Number 2, we're going to talk. So when we talk, we're going to discuss the thoughts that you have with the people that you trust and healthcare providers. We recognize that not everybody has a full-time or a registered physician, but we'll still talk about that as well. And the last part, think, talk, the 3rd part is plan, and that is to record your wishes, share your plan, share it with the people that you trust and your healthcare providers. So we're going to cover those bases today. So the first one is think. Think about what matters most to you. When we talk about this is really broad. So we're going to help give you some guidance today. Think about matters what to you is more than, do you take cream or sugar in your coffee? Way more than that, but that's important. What matters most to you is really your personal beliefs, your values, your beliefs, and your wishes. That's what we talk about. So personal values include things that are important to you in your life. It might mean coffee double-doubles, but it also means the values that you would like to have if you were to become seriously ill. What are your beliefs? Do you have spiritual beliefs or cultural practices that are important to you, that influence how you live and the options of care that might be available for you? So together, the values and your beliefs, we form them into what we call wishes. And these are your personal wishes. For example, if you were really sick, where would you want to be cared for? Is there something special you would like to have with you? Is there a certain kind of music? Those are all things that make us really unique and individual. So your values, beliefs, and wishes compile what you would like to have as part of your healthcare if you could. Don't forget, it might include a pet. It's not unusual for someone to say they have something that's really important to them and as a pet. It might be a personal object or something of significance. They matter to you. So that's what we're going to include in this conversation too. So here's some questions, because the stuff we talk about, like what matters most to you, when it comes to planning for your health and personal care, there can be kind of awkward questions and we don't know how to get them started. So right where you're at, maybe you have a piece of paper Beverly's given you, maybe you can scribble some of these things down. wherever you are, I just want you to know that there's no right or wrong answers to anything we talk about tonight. Because you're you, I'm me, and we do what we do because we're unique individuals. So, for example, do you have a certain movie or a book or a piece of music that is meaningful to you? And why? Maybe you like all kinds of music, but maybe there's a certain book, there's a certain movie that you think, that's mine, that's my special thing. Just think about that for a moment. This is a tougher question. What would quality of life look like for you? And everybody's circumstances are so different. Quality of life might really mean having a safe space. Maybe it's more than that. It is having two people who you trust, they're your lifetime buddies or friends with you. Maybe quality of life means, as I know someone who was really ill in her bed, she had no mobility anymore, and she would lift her head and sort of sit up and see her toes sticking out. And it was really important for her to have a pedicure. And they painted her toenails her favorite color. You think, well, why is that important? Because that mattered to her, because that's who she was. So quality of life can be something simple or it can be way more complex to you. But what does it matter to you? Another question we can get you to think about is, if you're unable, and perhaps some people have had this challenge, you don't know how to make a healthcare decision because you didn't have a voice. If you're unable to make a healthcare decision for yourself and somebody else had to make it for you, what would you want this person to keep in mind? What do you want them to know about you? So I'm going to ask you again, what matters most to you? This exercise is a little bit more of a thinking one again. And as I'm reading these out, this is a bit of an exercise I want you to sort in your own mind. So I'm going to read 4 statements, and beside them you see A, B, C, D. What I'd like you to do is just consider each of these 4 statements, and I want you to think about which one of these statements might be the most important to you and which is the least. Remember, there's no right or wrong answers because this is yours. And just prioritize them, A, B, C, D. So what would matter most to you? To keep my sense of humor. To have a doctor who knows me as a whole person. To not be a burden to my friends or my family. Not be connected to machines. Just ponder that for a minute. It's a tough one, I think. Is there anyone brave enough who would like to share their order? Maybe which one's A, which is B, which is D? No judgment, no criticism, just what maybe in the chat somebody would like to put in A, B, C, D. I'm not sure. Or somebody on the floor. Is there someone brave enough to share?
One person has said that their list is as is. So it's A, B, C, D.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, and someone else said it's reversed.
Oh, so for the second participant, A would be not connected to machines.
Mm-hmm.
B is not being a burden to my family.
Mm-hmm.
C would be to have a doctor who knows me as a whole person, and D would be to keep my sense of humor. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anyone else?
And the one person is, it's DCBA.
Okay, so
DCBA. So A would be the machines.
okay,
Not being on machines, yeah.
okay. All right, thank you very much for sharing that. I have one more set of questions. We'll see if we can do this again. What matters most to you in these statements? And do the same thing, just put them in order. Is it to maintain my dignity? To have my close friend or family with me? Is it to be free from pain? Is it to live as long as possible? I'll give you a minute to think and sort that as well.
And these are tough choices too, so
They are.
yeah, can bring up emotion.
And I'm going to just ask once more, is there anybody that would be brave enough to share their order on this set of questions?
They're still writing.
There's a couple in the chat box.
Oh, they're just saying that they're writing.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, we have BCAD.
Okay, so the first one would be to have my family with me. The second one would be to maintain my dignity.
No, BCAD. So A would be free of pain.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. B would be to maintain their dignity. And then family with me. And the last one is to live as long as possible.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And another one, living long as possible is important to them. So two individuals said that.
Okay.
So yes, we're all very unique in our wishes and our beliefs.
So just to, I don't know how that exercise felt to you, but I hope that it just provides you a little bit of an insight of some of the things that we maybe don't think about as often about what matters most to me. But some of these are really hard statements. And of course, there's no right or wrong answers. But maybe over the course of an accident or an illness, even our health changes, and perhaps these matters even change for you. So perhaps what you've said today might look really different tomorrow, depending on the situation you find yourself in. That's why when we talk about what matters to you, it's all about recognizing where you are in a health journey or the trajectory at the time. So that was a key component of talk. The next one we're going to go over quickly is think. So what matters to you is not just something we're going to do tonight. It's going to be probably a process you're going to be talking about with other people, maybe as you follow up tonight, or you're going to go and talk now with somebody else about what you're learning. So we're going to think about who could make the decisions for you about your healthcare if you could not. So I want you to remember too that our decision-making abilities can sometimes be affected depending, I was going to say, maybe by the time of day. Perhaps you're on a certain medication or a treatment regime of some kind. And sometimes in the day, the morning might be better for you and the afternoon is worse. Sometimes your decision-making capacity changes too about what matters to you. Don't worry about that. You can think about this at any time that works for you. So we want to think about now who could make decisions for you if you could not. So the person who has that capacity is someone that you would ask to make decisions for you. And that person is called a substitute decision maker. It's a person who will be asked to make decisions for you if you could not do so, even with support. Remember at the first slide, Jazz introduced it, said you have the right and you can ask for support. So even if perhaps you had a language translator and you didn't understand that, and even with support, you had a trusted person next to you, that substitute decision maker can speak on your behalf. So what does that look like? Well, we say in the province of British Columbia, there are actually two kinds of substitute decision makers. So the first one we refer to, and you may have heard of this before, is called a temporary substitute decision maker. So this is someone who is chosen by a healthcare provider from the list in the law. So in the province of BC, we're going to go over a temporary substitute decision maker. Now, this is for a healthcare decision only. So it's not if you have some situation around housing or with your landlord. This is strictly a healthcare medical decision. The other kind of substitute decision maker is a representative. And this is a person that is chosen by you, and it will be someone who you will designate by using a legal form in the province of British Columbia called a representation agreement. And we will go over that as well. A representative is chosen by you then for health and personal care decisions. So I wonder how many of you are aware of this temporary substitute decision maker list. So I'm going to just run through it. In province of British Columbia, this would be the order. So in other words, if you were incapacitated, could not speak for yourself, and needed medical care, the healthcare providers are going to go through this list to look for someone who may speak on your behalf. The first person, and this is the order, the first person they would look for is a spouse or a common law partner. This list will progress. If the first one isn't available and they can't find, they would go to the next one and the next one. So as an adult, perhaps you have adult children. The next one would be a parent. I still have a living parent. She is several decades older than me. It would be a shock for her to receive a healthcare inquiry for me. It might be a sibling. So it goes from a spouse, common law partner, adult children to a parent. The next on the list is a sibling. The next on the list would be a grandparent, a grandchild. Could be anyone else who is related to you by birth or adoption. A temporary substitute decision maker could be a close friend or a person immediately related by marriage. So any one of those individuals on number 1 to 9 must meet the eligibility criteria, and that is in BC, they must be of legal age, which is 19 years or older. They must be capable. They must have had no dispute with you, and they must have had a contact with you in the past 12 months. And they must be someone who will comply with their duties. If all 9 of these have been attempted and nobody can be found or reached that would qualify the eligibility to speak on your behalf, then someone authorized by the public guardian and trustee in the province would be chosen. That is set up from the hospital, and they would initiate a contact for a public guardian and trustee. So that's a pretty big list. One more question, one more list, and then I will open this up for dialogue. Who in the world would be a good substitute decision maker for you? Well, first of all, it would need to be someone who knows you well, someone who could honor your wishes and instructions, someone who could communicate with the healthcare providers, and is prone to be more calm in a crisis, could handle conflict or disagreement, and be willing to take on that role. So in other words, a substitute decision maker advocates your decisions and your wishes. So I'm just curious, has anybody seen the temporary substitute decision list before? Is that familiar to you, or is it unfamiliar to you? For a lot of British Columbians, for a lot of people, it's somewhat new. So don't be shy of saying, I didn't really know how that works. You're not alone. Is there a comment in the chat, Jazz?
No.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit more. I'm going to give you an example. Out of this, we're going to keep asking the questions. We're going to think about our wishes and our values and our beliefs, and we're going to talk about who could make a good substitute decision maker for you. So here's an example. So Peter is a gentleman who was in a car accident, and because of that incident, he required a hip replacement. But because he was unconscious when he arrived at the hospital, the physicians, the doctor there, reviewed the temporary substitute decision maker list. So remember, the list was Peter's spouse or common law partner. It could be one of his children, could be a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, or a grandchild. Or number 7, someone related by birth, adoption, or a close friend. So on his temporary substitute decision maker list, he had stipulated a grandchild would be his temporary decision maker. Now, unfortunately, starting from the top of the list, the healthcare providers tried to reach his wife and they could not reach her. So they contacted the next person on the list, and it was one of Peter's children. Peter did not at that moment have control of anyone who acted as his temporary substitute decision maker from one decision for the next. Peter would have preferred his grandchild, his grandson, to be his decision maker. He would have preferred that to make the healthcare decisions for him, but that would have required that his wife and his children and his parents and the siblings and the grandparents were all ineligible or unavailable. So this can get a bit tricky, because remember, when we're in a healthcare crisis, it means we don't have the cognitive ability or the capacity to speak for ourselves. So the responsibilities of a decision maker, substitute decision maker, they will involve you in the decision-making process to the greatest extent possible. If that's not possible, then again, the substitute decision maker needs to make decisions for you based on what they know about you, what you've shared with them about your values, beliefs, and wishes, what they know about you and your health condition, your health and your treatment preferences. This could include medicine, drugs, preferences to no drugs. It could include blood transfusions. It could be any measures of life-sustaining capacity, and that would include your medical or treatment options. The limitations of having a temporary substitute decision maker list, as we've kind of alluded to here, is you have no control. You do not get to decide the order of this list. And you do not decide who your healthcare provider can select. And a different person might be chosen each time, depending on the situation and where you are. And again, it's just for healthcare decisions. If the temporary substitute decision maker list makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't like the feel of it, you don't like the order of it, you don't want an older parent or a sibling you haven't talked to in 10 years, if any of those people on that list would feel uncomfortable for you, then it would be strongly encouraged and recommended to consider a representation agreement. Now, this is really important if you already have the diagnosis of a serious illness or a life-limiting illness. A representation agreement is indeed a legal document. This allows you to choose your own substitute decision maker as your representative, and a representative that could make healthcare decisions for you and personal care decisions if you have so given them the information and designated them in your agreement to do so. So in this content, so we've talked about a temporary decision maker. If that list doesn't work for you, there's a representation agreement. Now we're going to just look at two different kinds. There's a difference between a representation agreement. You may have heard some of this before, but there's what we call an enhanced a Section 9, or a standard Section 7 rep agreement. So just simply put, a Section 9, it can be made by an adult who understands what the agreement is about and how it works. It can be made to make decisions for the adult. So I, as an adult, I understand what the agreement is saying. I can decide who would make my decisions, and I can designate someone to make health and personal care decisions as I choose. A Section 7 or a standard agreement can be made by an adult even if you have some trouble understanding information. So to help the adult make decisions or make decisions for them, you can ask someone and subscribe them as a standard representation agreement. This will allow them to make health and personal care decisions for you, as well as legal and some financial decisions. So in other words, there's a broader scope of permission that you give this individual to make decisions on your behalf. It's really good to know that representation agreements are helpful for you, especially, as I've said, if the temporary substitute decision maker list doesn't work for you. If perhaps you have routine medical treatments or more frequently have some challenges with your health care or an illness that you're living with, having a representation agreement can provide peace of mind for you and also provide consistency in care and decision making. So if you have a trusted friend or a family member and you have had the discussion about the representation agreement and they agree to it, it helps you and benefits you for consistency in your care. And of course, in the case of conflict, should there be any disputes, everybody has some family quarrels and disagreements. This would help at least alleviate the conflict about who's going to speak on your behalf. And a representation agreement can give you then the peace of mind for care decisions around personal matters as well. So that's really important to talk about your wishes with the people that you trust. And I think it's really important, we want to be very careful and clear here that, you know, the family unit in all of our lives can look really, really different. People that you trust is who you define with the kind of relationship, the people that you trust who know you. And when we look at what kind of person could speak on your behalf, you need to sort that out with the individual. So you are going to discuss your thoughts with the people you trust and a healthcare provider. Now, I want to go back to Peter's story. Remember, Peter had this because the temporary substitute decision maker list wasn't his best fit. He really didn't like how that worked for him because when his wife was out of town, somebody else had to make a decision for him. So Peter's suggestion, he made a representation agreement. And because his wife felt much more comfortable around making personal care decisions, he specified in his representation agreement that his wife would speak and handle matters of personal care. And it would be his grandson who is managing his healthcare decisions. A representation agreement can allow you to choose and stipulate the best possible decision makers for you.
Melody, can you tell this difference between personal care and the healthcare?
Yes, that's a great question. So personal care decisions, it may include, for instance, hygiene care. It could include, for instance, depends what you have. It could be matters around massage or therapy. It might be personal care around any other treatments that you may be receiving that are not directly linked to the healthcare that you're receiving. Personal care, you can also designate that, you can outline that in a representation agreement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. So a representation agreement then gives you the voice and the power to make decisions that would suit you better. Who do you talk to? The people that you trust. So you're going to talk about the things that matter most to you about your healthcare. You're going to talk about your healthcare wishes. You're going to talk about your healthcare. You're going to talk to your substitute decision maker. It's really important that you have a conversation, not to assume that it's going to be someone who knows everything about you, but it's a very intentional choice. And sharing these decisions with other close friends or family members might also be helpful, so that situation arise, there isn't conflict about who had assumed or thought they might be speaking for you. What should you talk about? Well, we're saying this: your values, your beliefs and wishes for future care, and who would be your substitute decision maker. There are so many ways to start a conversation. We recognize that tonight, I hope you pick up a few of these. You will have the resources, but that you can begin to think and talk about them. For instance, in starting a conversation, one of the incredible questions is, do you have any worries when it comes to your future healthcare? Perhaps there is an illness or a condition that you're living with, and you wonder if it's going to progress. Will it impede mobility? Will it impede your judgment or your ability to work? That's a really legitimate question. What beliefs and values and activities are important to you? Have you thought about being an organ donor? Are you an organ donor? Does anybody know that you're an organ donor or not? Here's always a really good question. If you have no other question to start with, it could be this: who would you feel comfortable with helping you with your personal care? And by that, I mean toileting, showering, getting you in and out of bed, in and out of a chair. Okay, let me change the question. Who would you not feel comfortable with helping you with your personal care? Somehow I can answer that question quicker than what I'd helpful with. You'll be receiving this conversation starter as well, and I hope that it would help you think about, again, what matters to you. Then there's that awkward, like, okay, how do I start this? Like, do you want to go for coffee? Yeah, okay. Maybe here's a question starter. I'd really like to talk to you about my healthcare and my future healthcare needs. Can you help me? Hey, I was seeing what happened to Ernie last week, and that made me realize I didn't tell you what was important to me. Oh, I don't want you to worry, but maybe we could talk about some of my healthcare stuff that's really important. Maybe you just watched a Netflix or a Crave movie or something on TV, and it's not quite that personal, but you could say, hey, you know, when on ER or PD or whatever you watch, the police department, that happened to this guy. Don't ever do that to me. I can tell you a personal story. So it's been many years since my father passed away, but he lived for many, many years with a blood cancer. And he also had a heart condition. And it was pretty common in our household that if he was short of breath, we would just have to regulate it by making a couple thumps to regulate his heart. There came a day where that didn't happen, and we had to call 911, and he received all the treatment that he wished for in the hospital. At the end of the day, after a rather traumatic and nail-biting day, he said to both my mom and I, he said, you know what, if that ever happens again, would you please let me go? I don't want all the heroics. Well, honestly, this is more than 20 years ago. We had never talked about what it would look like when he got to the end. We just assumed, I don't know, we had been doing this for so long, we just assumed. This time, with my mom, she is in her 90s, I know what's important to her. She doesn't want toenail polish, but she would like to keep her hair coiffed and curled, and her hygiene needs are important to her. And as best as possible, we try to take her out in her mobility support, outside, take her for walks, and to keep her comfortable. It's made such a difference to be able to know what was important to both of my parents. Strikingly different, but it allowed me now to be able to say, what's important to you? Is it important to you if I take care of you this way or this way? Would you like this kind of a treatment for the pain? Or is it important for you to have the pain managed so that you can sleep better tonight? All of those are really important questions, especially as a representative and a caregiver for her. Now, the last part about talking or thinking and talking is to talk to your healthcare providers. This might be a little harder. We recognize, and I recognize, that a lot of people don't have regular doctors or a healthcare provider they see. However, if you have a serious illness, you probably have a connection to the clinic or to some regular treatments. These would be part of your healthcare providing team. So it's important that when you go to a healthcare provider and receive a treatment or an infusion or whatever your needs are, you can ask the questions about your healthcare conditions and your treatment options. If you have a healthcare provider that's consistently caring, it's also important that you share your wishes, your beliefs, and your values about your future healthcare with them. Tell them what matters most to you and make sure you convey to them who is your representative, right? Or your substitute decision maker. This is an ongoing process because you change places, sometimes you move, sometimes you end up receiving care in a different place, but most of all, that you're talking with your healthcare providers in light of the changes that happen with you. So before we go on to the next section, which is planning, I've just covered think and talk. I just want to take a break and ask if there's any questions or any comments that you as a participant may have.
That's a really good question, actually.
Okay.
And so it's around the talk piece. So what if a family or your friends are kind of reluctant to discuss anything at all?
That's a darn good question.
It is, because I think this is the number one question for most people. Yeah.
You know, sometimes, I don't know if you drive, sometimes I've had the conversation when I have somebody in the car with me and kind of lock the door and you have to keep driving. You can ask the question. They won't jump out, I hope. The other thing is maybe you could use one of the resources like the Start the Conversation that we have that we're going to hand out to you. You could say, you know, there's a couple questions on here that are important to me. Can we just chat for a minute? Maybe you really don't want to talk about what happens in the future. I have a disease, I'm sick. But it's important for your loved ones, the people that you trust, to say, you know what, I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to give you one snippet today. And in the back of your mind, you're going to say, and I'm going to give you one more snippet tomorrow. Because the more that you're able to speak about this, we're going to suggest that you write it down, capture it, the better and the easier it becomes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. For me, I think the more comfortable I became in talking about it, then the people around me became more comfortable. If I'm hesitating, I don't know, like this is a sad topic, and this isn't necessarily talking about end of life. No. This is just, you know, what if I have an accident? I'm not able to speak for myself. And so the more comfortable I became, and I you know, we'll talk about like how even Hollywood is talking about it. So as a society, as a community, as we start talking about these conversations or having these conversations, that I think it'll just become a part of, no different than doing a will or any other planning that we do. And there was one more question, which is the person said they thought about who they would like as their substitute decision maker, but they didn't know there was this list within the law. And I think just want to clarify that, yes, there's the list, but that doesn't mean that that's the order that, like, if you've chosen a substitute decision maker, then that list, then your wishes would be honored versus the list. And so that's the whole point of having today's conversation, is let your wishes be known so that whoever's on that list that maybe you don't want them to make the decisions, like, they're not asked. Anything you want to say further? I think those are the two questions. Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll take the next section here.
Yeah, so we've talked about thinking about, what your wishes are, what your values are. We've talked about talking about that with our family members, our friends, people that we trust. The next part, so we've done all of this, now what? So the next part is to plan, to record those wishes, record them in an advanced care plan, and then not just record them, but to share that with the people that you trust and with your healthcare providers. So in your advanced care plan, there's you can fill it, definitely there's forms you can fill in, but there's two key components. So it could be written a plan. It could be, you can document it in a video or record it in an audio of what your values are, what your beliefs are, and what your wishes are about your health and personal care. What matters to you the most? And the second piece of that is also to include the contact information of your potential temporary substitute decision maker, because you got to be able to contact them, right? So according to law, with notes on who wouldn't qualify and why. So because temporary decision makers are the default decision makers for everyone in BC, it's important that everyone complete a contact list and include notes on people who wouldn't qualify and why. So this list can be shared with your healthcare providers to help them quickly choose a temporary substitute decision maker for when you need it. It can include any optional legal forms as well. And Melody has talked about the representation agreement and advanced directive that gives these are both legal forms that would give direction if you have a chronic or lung illness. And then medical orders, such you can include things like that you want to include CPR, or you don't want to be resuscitated, or the most form. So those are some other things that you can include in there. Okay. And so what do you do with your advanced care plan? So, it's no use like kind of locking it up in a little locker somewhere. You need to share it. Share it with your substitute decision maker, your representative, your healthcare providers, your family members, or people that you trust, or your community organizations, whoever it is that you're most in contact with. So keep all the documents and together in a place that's easy to find. And first responders have been told to check the fridge for any healthcare type of documents. There's a thing called a green sleeve, and you can put those pages into that green sleeve and then put that on your fridge. And if you have the documents and you're going to the hospital, bring the documents with you if you're going to the hospital. Okay, and so another thing that we've included for you today that can be printed and laminated, you can go to Staples and laminate this, is a wallet card, which you can have with you at all times. Okay. And finally, you need to review this advanced care plan. And that's, I think, the most important thing, because I think Melody did mention that, you know, life changes, the people around us, our relationships change. And, you know, like I'm sitting here today and planning this, you know, what my wishes are, what kind of care I want. And I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, all of a sudden, all of the things that I thought mattered to me didn't matter to me anymore. And there was a different set of circumstances that I was facing, and, you know, time to review that advanced care plan again and see what was important to me in that moment. So it's advanced care planning is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong process of thinking, talking, planning, and reviewing. So your advanced care plan is also, it's not set in stone. You can change your wishes at any time. We got to make sure that you share that too, though, right? So other times when, you know, you can kind of make a mental note to kind of review all of this is when your healthcare changes, or if your substitute decision maker or your representatives changes, your healthcare provider changes, and then, you know, anytime maybe you move, you know, maybe some people tend to review it annually when they're doing their taxes. So that's, you know, something you don't have to remember, like another date that you have to review it. You should review it frequently if things change in your life and as your health is changing. So how do we get started?
Yes, how do we get started?
How do we get started? Okay, so we have the BC Centre Palliative Care has lots of online resources for you that have been adapted and translated to various languages. Chinese, simplified Chinese, Punjabi, we're working on Hindi right now. We have brochures that are available for you. They're free. You can download them, get more clarity on any things that you need. There's also a guide for substitute decision makers to help you be a good substitute decision maker if someone asks you to be a decision maker. So that's, I think, a really good one. Again, all of these documents are free. BC Palliative Care develops these documents with the consultation of community members and best practices, and available for anyone free of cost. And I think we have some available for you today there too that are printed. So now I'd like to invite you to ask any questions, type those write them out, type them into the chat box. Thank you for your time today with us. This has been really great. I hope you learned lots.
We know we've also probably downloaded quite a bit of information if this is the first time that you, one of the participants had said, you know, I don't know anything about it. So there is a lot, but don't be overwhelmed. You know, the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I hope that our takeaway for you tonight would be, if you can remember 3 simple words: think, talk, plan. Think about what matters most to you. Talk about it with the people who matter to you, and then start the planning.
And yeah, do you want to put up our website address so they can take that down?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it is time for questions. If there's any questions or comments, and if we don't have the answer today, we'll get it to you, and we'll get it to you back to you through to Beverly. However, we will direct what we can to you.
Do you need to have a legal representation agreement to action your plan?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Do not need to have any legal form to have an advanced care plan. As a matter of fact, you can write an advanced care plan. You can record it, as we've said. It could be as simple as stating your name. You could state, you know, I have an illness. I do not have an illness. These are my wishes. This is what's important to me. Should I become ill, this is who speaks on my behalf. This is what's important to me today. It is not a legal document, but the advocacy of your substitute decision maker could speak for you in circumstances where you could not. The suggestion for a representation agreement is a form. It does not need to be notarized by any lawyer or a power of attorney. However, it is a form, and you sign it, it becomes a legal form. But it's not necessary to have an advanced care plan or to dictate your wishes. Does that make sense?
I think so. And thank you, Teresa, for your appreciation there. Anyone else have any questions? Anything?
So just
One question there in the chat.
okay.
Follow-up question is, anything you've discussed today part of a will or estate plan, or is it separate?
Oh, that's such a great question. You know what? Advanced care planning for your healthcare is completely separate
Yeah.
in your wills and your estate. That's probably one of the biggest common myths. If somebody says, don't worry, I got my will and my estate done. Let me put it to you this way. Nobody has access to your estate. Nobody will read your will until you've passed away. It's completely different. Advanced care planning is about how do you want to live? What's important to you while you live? Your will, your estate planning is for after you've passed away, and others who will take care of those matters for you. That's why advanced care planning is about how I want to live, regardless if you're healthy today or you have a serious illness. It may be awkward to talk to somebody about it, but honestly, I like to ride, I like to cycle. My family knows because I could get hit by a car, I could flip. I don't do flips, but I could. They need to know what's important to me should I need health care. It's how do I want to live? How do you want to live? That's why we're passionate about advanced care planning. Anything else? The good thing about writing in a chat is you don't have to put your name with it if you really want to ask something, but you don't want to identify yourself.
So we can just say,
Yeah.
do you want?
Sorry, go ahead.
Am I on?
Yeah.
So Melody and Jazz, we just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. We will share all of the documents that you provided and the great resources that you have on the BC Centre for Palliative Care. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us tonight, and we look forward to following with you again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for having us and hosting us, and we'll connect with you shortly after this next week.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.